Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Gerard, Witch of Earth's Curious Goods, and today I am doing a show and spell hashtag. I was tagged by Kelly from Maple Grove, so I'm going to show you my apothecary. So if this sounds interesting to you, keep on watching. And if you haven't already been to Kelly's channel on YouTube called Maple Grove, you should definitely check it out. But without further ado, let's begin. So the show and spell hashtag, I'm not too sure who began it. I just know I was watching Kelly's video and she did her apothecary and then tagged me at the end of it to show my apothecary. So there's 13 questions that you kind of want to go through for this hashtag. So we'll dive right on into the first question. And the first question is, origins of the collection. What inspired you to start collecting apothecary items, and how did you begin your collection? To begin, for me, I would think of an apothecary as a place that you go to for your collection of items, herbs. So if those of you that don't have an apothecary or don't really know what it's all about, a typical apothecary would have herbs and items that we would use on a daily basis, whether for medicinal, for magical, for storage purposes. So for me in particular, what made me start collecting items for my apothecary is, for those of you that know, I have an online e-commerce store called Earth's Curious Goods, and I keep a lot of herbs. And I also use it in my spellcraft or in a lot of my videos. So if you see the herbs that I'm using in the videos, it's coming from my apothecary. So that kind of inspired me to begin collecting more for it. Now, my apothecary is mainly just herbs. So it's not really, in my opinion, it's not really glamorized or, you know, something huge and special, I guess. But for me, it is a place that I go to. I feel witchy when I'm in front of it. I know that's weird to sound, or it sounds weird, I'm sorry. It sounds weird. But when I'm in front of it, I do feel very witchy, and I'm very inclined to start like mixing things and making concoctions and potions and brews when I'm in front of it each time. It's all the herbs. It's the aesthetic of it. It's the look of it. So the inspiration is my craft and in my business, my store. The next question is storage. What do you use and any special significance behind your choices? My choice is just mason jars. They have to be airtight. I find that the herbs that I use from the aromatherapy benefits, the smelling part of it, or the medicinal portion of it, it keeps a little bit longer. You can keep it for a good year or two. With it being airtight, there's no moisture getting to it. I have items like black salt all the way to bark and loose herbs. I find that in a jar that's airtight, out of the sunlight, in a cool area of my place, it keeps well. And that's kind of my preference. There's just something about a jar. For those of you that are witches or practitioners, you guys know that a witch can really hoard a jar. I will empty out a mayonnaise jar and I'm just like, should I keep this jar for storage for something? I have to like tell myself like, no, Gerard, you don't need to keep it. But I do prefer a mason jar. It's the aesthetic of it. Not saying that all apothecaries have mason jars or used jars. Some people just use plastic bags or plastic containers. I just prefer a jar. It works for me. The next question is labeling. What do you use as your labels? What is your process in labeling? What do you write on your labels? The labels that I use are just it's Avery labels, I believe, but they're for chalk writing. They're just round labels that you could use chalk markers, I guess, on, and I use the washable ones because I might need to change out the item, or I just want to switch around some of the jars. So those are the labels that I choose, and they're just round black labels. Well, let me see if I can show you. There we go. I don't know if that comes through. Hopefully it does. But they're just round black labels that I chalk. I have a chalk marker that I got from store called Michael's, and I just write what's inside of the jar on it. And it's just easy, washable. I can change it out if need be, but they work great. That's kind of my process, is just labeling like normal. The next question is favorite items. Can you show us your favorite item from your collection and explain why it holds special significance to you? My favorite item. My favorite item is going to be black salt. If those of you that follow me or have been with my channel for a while, you know that I was born and raised in Hawaii, on the island of Oahu. So the black salt that I get is shipped from the island called Molokai, and it is just already kind of, it just resonates with me. I love using it. I make witch's black salt with it. I use black salt in a lot of my rituals for protection. I'm using it for a lot of things, and it just has culinary uses too. You could just use it for just cooking as well. But I mainly use it for magical purposes. But I love adding black salt to my witch's black salt to give it that sort of oomph. And also it's good for protection spells or spells of banishing. I find that the black salt from the Hawaiian Islands, me in particular, just melts well with my practice. And so yeah, that's why I like it to be, that's why I find it very special and true and dear to my heart. The next question is historical significance. What are some of the most historically significant pieces in your collection, and can you share any interesting stories behind them? I wish I had something that's historical, but I don't really, because my apothecary is made up of just herbs. Historically, I don't have anything that's like, ooh, this is like, 20 years old or so forth. I do find that historically, I love how the herbs have a history, the plants have a history throughout time. And I love how, as I'm using black salt in my practice, that doesn't necessarily mean that that black salt is used in someone else's practice the same. So I find it very interesting that even though we're both using the herb rosemary, it has different meanings and significance in your practice. You may use it for abundance or prosperity. I mainly use mine for protection or warding. So I just find it very interesting, and historically it's been used many different ways. All these herbs really. So I like hearing about the different ways people use it throughout history and how it was used during certain eras, because rosemary in the 1800s was used differently than rosemary in 2024. So I find it interesting that as time progresses, the use of the herb changes per se, I guess, in its uses, like how it's being used. And also I like seeing how historically what it was used doesn't necessarily mean that that's how it's used today. So it's kind of interesting. I love it. Next question, spellcraft integration. How do you incorporate these apothecary items into your spellcraft, and are there any specific items that you find particularly effective? All of the items that are in my apothecary I use in my spellcraft. Every single herb that's on this shelf right now has been used once or twice or many times in a lot of spell work. A lot of my customers also use these herbs in their spell work. Some of them use it just in their teas and so forth, just everyday mundane use, but majority of it is used in spellcraft. Me in particular, I find hyssop being my most favorite one. I just love how it just gives whatever I put with it. a very divine feel, I guess, or a lighter feel. So like I'll add a little bit of hyssop to my just holy water, and it just gives it that little umph. I can't really explain it. Just me in particular, especially for my practice, I have to have hyssop. Like I'm putting hyssop in mop water, bath water, in my sprays, in my holy water, in, you know, my cauldron, in my herbal mixes. It's just it has a very cleansing property to it that I noticeably, I guess I said that right. I notice very intensely. So I highly recommend it if you haven't used hyssop to get your hands on some. Next question, rare finds. What is the rarest or most unique item in your collection, and how did you come across it? Rare finds. Not in my apothecary. I don't really have really a rare find. These herbs you can get, you know, anywhere in the world. Well, I guess I can't really say anywhere in the world. You can get your hands on them. It's not, you know, very rare to not be able to get your hands on all of these herbs that I do carry. Hence why I love having them in my apothecaries, because you use them. I don't want to have this rare herb that you know, I can only get once in a blue moon, and you know, and I need it, you know, tomorrow. So I think in my opinion, an apothecary needs to be easily accessible, right? So that it's not getting dusty, that you are using it, that it's not that item that's in the back of your shelf that you haven't seen in 20 years, you know, now it's just gone bad, or you didn't even know you carried it. So I tend to always shake up my herbs. I look at them, I pass through, I use them on a daily basis, not just to ship out to customers, but for myself and for my videos and for my spellcraft and just in my teas, sometimes baths, you know, to make my herbal baths. I have to, you know, use my apothecary. So I think it should be something that you can use daily, or if not, ease of use, I feel like an apothecary should be. That's just my opinion, but not necessarily true. Care and preservation. What steps do you take to preserve and care for your apothecary items, especially the more fragile or older pieces? Caring for the items, I check on them daily. I always open them. All of these jars get opened at least once a month so that I can smell and make sure that everything is still good. I check the dates, refilling them, shaking them up, but I usually run out of or like if it's not me using it, I'm usually shipping it out to customers and other practitioners, so it stays fresh constantly, because I'm having to order, you know, new herbs or get more, harvest more from the garden. A lot of these herbs too I do grow in my own personal garden, so harvesting them is a, you know, bi-monthly or sometimes seasonal chore, depending on the plant. You know, sometimes the plant grows faster, sometimes it's slower. I never quite know how much I'm harvesting. Sometimes I harvest a lot of rosemary, sometimes I harvest once a year rosemary. So it all depends on the plant, how it's feeling, how the garden is going, how the season's going. But as far as preserving and caring for them, I make sure that they're not, the herbs aren't kept in direct sunlight, that's in a cool, dry area. And that way it just keeps longer, fresher, and for me, for the mental state, at least for me, I feel like my magic works a lot better if I know that the herbs are good. So I just, you know, aesthetically and mentally, I like my mental state to align with my magic state, and that helps with that. Future additions. Are there any specific items or types of items you are currently searching for to add to your collection? Yes, so I am constantly trying to grow my apothecary, so I am going to be adding Damiana, and there'll be a video on using that herb, and I just recently added red sandalwood. Sandalwood has a lot of healing and cleansing and blessing properties. Adding white willow bark, I believe so. I gotta check my notes, but white willow bark I definitely want to add to my apothecary. I found them and I will be adding them. So it will be available in the store soon and you'll start seeing me use it in some of my videos. So if you watch carefully, you'll hear these herbs that I'm using and just know they're coming from my apothecary, nowhere else. What's the most bizarre item in your apothecary collection? How do you use it? I know I'm gonna get a lot of slack for saying this, but for me, I think mugwort is the most bizarre item or herb in my apothecary because it's like fluffy, fuzzy, I guess, fluffy. And I grow it in my garden. And if any of you have seen mugwort, it's a very pretty plant, in my opinion, and can you imagine, you know, drinking that tea? The tea is bitter, very bitter, but it has great properties magically from prophetic dreams, and you know, you can actually add it for like money charms. Like it has a lot of great properties, but it is a very bizarre herb to use and keep in the apothecary. And that's just, like I said, that's my opinion, and you know, a lot of people will probably disagree, but yeah, it's just, if you've worked with mugwort, you'll know that it's a very fluffy consistency. It's almost like a cotton, I guess, is kind of a feel, like cotton, but like weed cotton. If you could only keep one ingredient, what would it be? One ingredient, chamomile. I absolutely love chamomile in my apothecary, the properties of it. My body just loves it. It helps me sleep. I use it in a lot of charms. When I make charm bags, a lot of spells. Chamomile just has a very tranquil feel to it. And using it in your spell work, let's just say, for me, if I'm gonna do a hex, for instance, adding chamomile, I notice, helps tone the hex down, I guess, in a way, like tone it down. Not as aggressive, I guess. If you're trying to take like if your spell's at a 10, you need to bring it down to like a 5, try adding some chamomile and experiment with that, and you may have the same results that I do. It helps bring that level of spell down. It's like trying to destroy something, but you don't want to destroy everything around it. You just want to destroy that specific item and not obliterate it, but more of like a knock it down kind of feel. If it's an obstacle in your way, for instance, adding chamomile, love it. It just tones it down. At least in my experience in my spell work that I've done, I've noticed that chamomile, for me in particular, it always brings my spells a more tranquil or a half power level, I guess. Tone it down. And when I don't want it to be like, oh, this spell's doing a little too much. So when I try the spell again, I'll just add some chamomile and I'm like, okay, a lot better. I like those results a lot better. And the next question, advice for new collectors. What advice would you give to someone who is just starting their own apothecary collection? My advice for anyone that wants to start their apothecary is start. Just start. You don't need mason jars, you don't need containers. Just start collecting things that you will use, or you want to collect and maybe return to it, or it has an inspiring thing for you. But for me in particular, and like I said in the previous questions, I feel like an apothecary should be something that you do use or is connected to you in that aspect, that it is helping something in your life versus it just sitting there collecting dust, not really doing anything. I feel like it should have a purpose or some sort of use, at least through time, or historically, even with the word apothecary, you know, back then it meant storage, or it meant, you know, like a medicinal place where you can get medicines. But I feel like it's something that you store your items and you can use them for later or something. But I feel like if you're just starting your apothecary, don't get so much on the aesthetics. When I began, it was just mainly the aesthetics, but I needed to hold the herbs in something. And after doing a lot of research, I found that an airtight container is what you need. It doesn't have to be a mason jar, it doesn't have to be glass. You can use a plastic container. I just prefer glass, less plastic for me being used in my apothecary. And Magickally, that's why, for me, in my opinion, plastic tends to really contain energy, and it's not very conductive to energy. And I like to shake things up. I like to add energy to all the herbs. I tend to do spell work on the outside of the glass to keep up that type of frequency or that energy level that the herb is bringing before I send it to customers, before I use it in my spell work. So I felt like glass, in me in particular, with my way that I use my practice, glass tends to be a lot easier to magically cast through, or energy-wise, glass is just a lot easier for me. So, when you're just starting out, just start collecting stuff. I started with just a seashell, and then the seashell I gave back to the ocean, and then I started collecting herbs. And the reason why is because I love chamomile, and I drank tea, and I would open up tea bags and wondering what's inside of this tea bag. Is it really all chamomile? Is there other things inside of this bag? Can I make my own bag? So I feel like just you starting there, it kind of builds on its own, and who knows, you may have a whole shelf of different herbs that you will use on a daily basis. And that's my apothecary. Now, not all witches, not all practitioners will have an apothecary where it's just herbs. They can have keys and bones and feathers and just all kinds of different things that a practitioner or witch will store. Whether it is related to their practice or related to them in general and just in the mundane world, you know, to each their own on how to do their apothecary. But for you, I feel like if you're just going to start your apothecary, just start small. It could just be a shoebox full of items. And then you'll notice as time progresses, I notice as I have practiced over the years, it has changed, and it just ended up being a whole shelf of herbs. My apothecary is herbs. Versus I used to have like this wooden chest, and I had keys and all kinds of things in there, but it just was not working for me in particular as time went on, because I would forget there were certain things in there, and I was like, oh, I forgot about that, and it's no good, or that oil that I put in there that to just collect, like just start. Just start your apothecary. That is the best advice I can give you, and you'll see that over time it will just grow on its own and progress into something that is a part of your life. And the final question, curious about a fellow creator's apothecary, who would you tag in this video? In this video, I'm curious about Eerie Lightwalker. His channel is Eerie Lightwalker, and I'm curious about his apothecary. And Mika over at Leap Taken. I'm curious about her apothecary as well. Well, thank you for hanging out with me today and looking at my apothecary and me talking about my apothecary. I hope this video was inspirational. Thanks again to Kelly from Maple Grove for tagging me in this hashtag show and spell. And don't forget to check out the other videos that are tagged. All you have to do is in your search bar, just type show and spell, and it should bring up all the videos that are related to this, to that tag. And yeah, I hope you start your apothecary. And if you are starting your apothecary, I'm curious to hear about what you have in yours. So comment down below on some of the items that you have, or an item that you particularly just love. I'm curious. So as always, stay earthy and stay magical. And I want to give a special thanks to my channel members. You guys are the real stars. You just really keep things running over here at Earth's Curious Goods. And I want to give a shout out to Susan Pfeiffer, Skinny Gown 269, The Mushroom Lady, and Kelly Evans. Thank you guys for being my channel members, and thank all of you for just liking and commenting and subscribing. Those are just free ways that you can help this channel. By doing that, it lets the algorithm know that you like my videos that I'm making, and so it pushes it out to other people so they can also get a little bit of hope, a little bit of magic. And as always, until next time, bye for now.